Come on in, Clark County. It's Rob Anderson with Reform Clark County, and today have a great guest in studio, Representative John Lee. We're going to be covering as many topics as possible, and also just kind of give you an update on a breaking story that I shared last week about our future PA that is going through a legal battle of disqualification. But before we get started, hit the like button, the share, and support the show if you can by going to givesendgo.com, Reform Clark County, and support these efforts. So as I mentioned earlier, the Clark County Prosecuting Attorney is in a little bit of hot water because apparently she started a relationship with a sergeant who was a lead investigator in a case that she was prosecuting. And then she did recuse herself, according to this court document, which I received and I've shared with the public, that a motion to have her disqualified has been filed with the Clark County Courthouse. And this document, this motion alleges that she started an improper, she started dating a sergeant and who was, again, lead investigator, and notified the defense counsel that a new prosecuting attorney was going to take over from the office. However, in this document that was filed with Clark County, it demonstrates that maybe this relationship started much earlier and maybe was throughout the whole entire time of the prosecuting of this case. So this is a clear conflict of interest. This is what you don't want to see from a prosecuting attorney's office, and she hasn't even taken the oath of office yet. She's just fulfilling. So this would be an interesting situation to have the future prosecuting attorney become disqualified, in their office becoming disqualified, and then she's going to take the oath of office in January. So this is a real problem that's developing, and I'm sure that by the time this comes out, this episode, maybe there's some other articles or reporting on this situation, but this is not a good sign for Clark County's prosecuting attorney's office, who already was starting to have some stumbling. I'm not sure if Tony Gulick has already kind of checked out of this, but what we saw in the Charter Review Commission, where Katie Holmes, an attorney from the prosecuting attorney's office who's been assigned to the Charter Review, really aggressively interfered with the work of the Charter Review, and it's very clear trying to disrupt the Charter Review efforts. So we've already seen that lately. Now we see this with the motion to disqualify that's been posted with Clark County. So we'll keep an eye on this as we see it unfold. All right, so in studio today we have Representative John Lee. And so, a lot of people don't know, but you were scheduled to be on the show back, I think it was like March 19th, but I decided to take a medical vacation and go through open heart surgery and all that. So I was so bummed that, not only that I was in the hospital, but that we didn't get to have our conversation. So welcome to the studio.
Well, thanks, my friend. And as all of your friends know, you've got a huge heart. And fortunately, the heart surgeon did his magical work with the help of the good Lord, and you are back and delighted to be here, my friend.
I'm glad to, as they say, it's good to be seen.
Yes.
So one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about was it was just wrapping up the short session up in Olympia, and I wanted to get your take on what happened, because that was your first short session. You had the longer one the year before, but this one, really compact. And so walk us through briefly Just as in your thoughts on that, I know it probably feels like eternity almost. A lot of things are going, but walk us through what that was like and what your take coming out of that short session.
Incredibly intense. As always, I'm honored truly to represent the people. Overwhelmingly, the 800-pound gorilla of the session was the income tax. And we'd heard rumors. Then by the time we got there, we knew it was coming. They kept all the details secret until the last minute. Our leadership delightfully had a plan, and ultimately we spent 24 and a half hours on the floor debating that bill in the House, number one. Number two.
Wasn't that a record? I mean,
Yeah.
It has never been done before like that.
Previous record for debate on any one bill, I forget the number, but was something on the order of like 10 hours. Mm-hmm. So we just totally blew it out of the water. The majority party, the Democrats, because in the past we have used normally we have up to 10 minutes to speak on any amendment, on any bill. There are 39 of us Republicans, 59 Democrats, and so they introduced a rule that said when they trigger it, they can cut us down to just 3 minutes of debate on any amendment, on any topic. And so that reduced our ability, in a sense, to filibuster. Not that we can kill something, but to talk it to death.
Yeah, and I know that obviously took a lot of oxygen, and rightfully so. I mean, and here we are. I think they've collected enough signatures. They're going to keep going to pile on and make sure it gets on the ballot. But what are the kind of thing? I mean, are there a couple of things that maybe hasn't gotten quite the attention that the income tax has gotten?
Well, and there are so many different facets of things that in the end, in the first long session, we passed the largest tax increases in the history of the state of Washington, $9.5 billion for the general fund, another $3.2 billion in the transportation taxes, and then in the short session, they increased other taxes.
Yeah, and so
on top of that.
How's that going?
Yeah.
How's that going? They increased all those taxes, and didn't I just hear that, oops, we're running out of money already?
Yeah. We are already, depending on who you listen to, they're saying they were a couple of things. Number one, part of those spending increases, they gobbled up every available penny they could. They took our rainy day fund down to almost nothing. And most businesses like to have half a month to a month cash in reserve so that if something pops up, they can pay it. The state spent it down to like 1, 2, or 3 days worth. And horrible, and it's not a rainy day.
Wow.
Then they robbed $4 billion from a government employee pension fund. That is outrageous on so many levels. Yeah. And then they juggled and robbed money from other buckets to fund what they wanted to spend on, and they over-optimistically projected future growth,
of course,
in order to have it pencil out.
Yeah.
And now the revenues are coming in lower than their optimistic projections, and they're saying $1 billion or more shortfall when we get started next year.
The thing that doesn't make sense, I understand it, but it still makes me scratch my head, is we all know the union support behind Democrats, but then we see this move where they raid a pension fund of union workers. What was it? I think emergency workers and fire and police. And that just there seems to be nothing, which I think just shows that it's not the Democrats that say they're all union or blue collar worker. It's really not. It's about the dollars, because if it really was about them, there's no way that they would raid that pension fund. But that's exactly what they did, and I think it's not gonna be the last because of the lack of outrage, because of how easy it was for them. It's just like someone who goes and robs a bank. If it's successful and they walk out and don't get caught, guess what? They're gonna find another one.
Exactly.
And I'm afraid that that's where things are going here. So,
and my take in talking to constituents, the state has 16 different buckets of money in pension funds. If they get away with this theft of our police officer, it's the law enforcement and firefighter number 1 pension fund. If they get away with it, the other 15 are at risk. It's not a matter of if, just when the party in control comes back and starts borrowing/stealing money from the rest of the government employees, and the government employees ought to be outraged. And part of the challenge we face is so many government union employees have traditionally supported the Democrat Party. They need to look and see who fought against that, and hopefully they will vote differently this time around because of it.
So obviously there's a lot of messes, there's a lot of situations going on, and transportation is really kind of your main the main pot that you're constantly stirring and really bringing to the public what's going on. So I saw that you sent a letter to Secretary Duffy a couple weeks ago, I think, asking their intervention in this mess.
Yep.
And so have you got any kind of latest on that? And what do you think is kind of the status right now of the whole project?
Well, the whole project's broke, so they're phasing, and I think they're trying to pull a fast one, saying we're going to break it into 2 halves, and here we can go ahead with the first half, the first phase, yet they still don't have 100% of the money for phase 1. We will finagle things and pull that together, and then later on, with the change in administrations in D.C., with future Congresses, they hope to get boatloads of other money while they mismanage the money they're already getting. But so I wrote the letter to Secretary Duffy asking him to, at a minimum, hit the pause button. What the program is looking for is they're expecting on July 1st or thereabouts a record of decision. That record of decision will allow them to begin spending some of $2.1 billion in federal money, 2 different grants, and that opens the door for them to write contracts and do other things, because right now they're running out of money from Oregon and Washington. My request to Duffy is, at a minimum, hit the pause button. 2, do an audit, do a performance review of what's been done to date, and hopefully 3, scrutinize every detail of this that I'd love to spend hours and days shining the light on to them and say, no, this is such a huge waste of money. Officially, I've heard nothing back from Duffy. I've heard from other sources that they're very aware of it, that somebody back there got my letter and it's under consideration. I don't know what's happening, but clearly we're now in the last week from what Carly Francis says is a 1 July record of decision. But a bigger piece of this challenge, and totally appropriate for the federal government to look in on, is that Oregon does not have the money. They've been doing a pay-as-you-go, $250 million every 2 years. Both states promised $1 billion. Washington raised taxes and set aside, here's the $1 billion. You can come and grab it as you need it. Oregon, $250 million every 2 years. So next January, after 83% of Oregon voters just killed increases in transportation taxes, Oregon's going to have to find another $250 million, none of which goes to the cost overruns. It's just to fund what they've already promised, right. And then 2 years later they owe another $250. So Oregon's got a huge problem there. The governor is on the ballot in Oregon, and people are very unhappy at that whole tax package that she proposed with gas taxes, car tab fees. So the environment right now is not good for Oregon especially, but for raising additional money, no. And my takeaway at the beginning and the end of the day, this ought to be a $2 billion, very simple bridge that adds capacity over the river, number one. Number two, we don't need to spend $390 million destroying and removing the existing bridge.
Right.
Again, we can repurpose that, have it a local connection from Hayden Island to Vancouver. The minuscule number of pedestrians and bicyclists, they'd rather ride on that existing bridge rather than something that's 120 feet above the air, and so many insanity parts. But bottom line, I keep shining the light of day on these things.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. A lot of other people appreciate it. And I saw one other little new ingredient of insanity just recently came up, where it was a city council person who suggested, now I could be wrong, in maybe just kind of shine some light on this, where they were saying that they wanted fixed rail, which people don't realize. I mean, this was wild that I saw. I thought it was a misprint at first. I'm like, are you kidding? I mean, light rail's ridership's already way down. C-Tran, every time I drive by a C-Tran bus, it's 90% empty. And now, someone on the Vancouver City Council thinks it's a good idea to bring fixed rail.
So this was a workshop of the C-Tran Board of Directors. So not even a regular meeting. Normal, regular citizens were not really informed to be there, although they could. It was a public meeting. It's not even broadcast on CVTV so that people can go watch and hear the dialogue, which is a shame. But one of the Vancouver City Council members mentioned they want to see rail. Well, they paint it as we are going to need higher capacity transit service for our Clark County residents. Pardon my French, but that's insanity on an extreme level. C-Tran, our local transit service, their ridership peaked in 1999. And so here we are 27 years later, and we are well below that. They had 7.75 million annual boardings, and today we're around 5 million, so a third less, number one. Number two, the reality is today we are not back up to pre-pandemic levels of ridership on C-Tran, on their regular bus service. And so while the rest of the economy has recovered in many ways, bottom line is people are working from home, and or just people change their mind about using transit. And so rough wag, we are 1 million people less than we had in 2019 riding our fixed routes.
So what would they do with all the homeless camps that they've turned the park and rides into? I mean, they would have to clear those out. I mean, that seems like a real problem there. Like they can't do that. I mean, that's prime real estate for the homeless camps.
Well, and that swerves into a totally different aspect of the program I have yet to be able to write an article on, but the program wants to create 1,270 park and ride facilities in the heart of downtown Vancouver. And I don't know the total price tag updated on that, but on the old price tag when the IBR was $7.5 billion before it jumped to 15 plus, the price tag was over $200 million for 5 different possible park and ride locations, 3 down at the Vancouver waterfront and 2 by the Vancouver Library. And so former WSDOT Secretary Roger Millar multiple times told the IBR Executive Steering Group, park and rides are a thing of the past. It's a waste of money. Other members of that Executive Steering Group also said this is a waste of money. And yet here we are today, 2, 3, 4 years later, and they are still demanding 1,270 park and ride spaces. And I think Vancouver just thinks, oh, we're going to get the state and the feds to create parking for us as part of their model of creating high-density development, huge apartments, and everybody, they hope, riding transit, which...
If you build it, they will come.
Yeah,
Basically,
and it's not going to happen.
No, it's Yeah, it's pretty wild to me. And you say 5 million is the ridership that they claim on C-Tran right now a year. How accurate do you think that number is? Because again, it's almost a kind of a game in our family where every time we see a C-Tran bus, we're like, is that one empty? Is that one empty? Oh, that one had one. Oh, that one had two. And it seems like I don't know if that's an accurate number.
So all I can tell you is what they report us, either via public record requests or in their annual report. And their annual report was published 2 days after the June C-Tran board meeting.
Of course.
But delightfully, I scrutinized that. I think it's 78, 79 pages long, and they report annual ridership. And they also, at the very end of it, report ridership and other statistics going back to 2016. So there's 10 years worth of data there. And so that 5 million, off the top of my head, is current, and it is up from about 3.2 million at the depths of the pandemic, when everybody was still locked at home, nobody riding and all of that. That having been said, the 2019 ridership was rough wag 1 million more. Before the pandemic.
The population for Clark County is a little over 500,000. It's like 550 or something like that.
Getting close to 550, exactly.
So I just 5 million. I don't know.
That's annual boarding. So another aspect, that's annual boardings. So how often does a person board? If you're not transferring, you board twice, getting on and then coming home. If you're transferring to one line, and most transit riders will only transfer once.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me that they count you getting on the bus and you getting off the bus?
No. But when you come home, that's a separate getting on.
Right. Yeah, okay, I see. But still, that's wild
boardings.
To me. That's pretty wild to me. So I've always felt like that those numbers are suspicious, and they'd be motivated to, obviously try to have those high and justify their services. So let's shift gears.
Let me throw in a couple more nuggets.
All right.
Okay, in that annual report, the average C-Tran bus in an hour is carrying 16.8 people for every hour they are serving. So John is going to paint with a broad brush. If you jump on the bus at the Vancouver Mall and ride to downtown, that's going to take about half an hour. And then the bus is going to turn around and reverse route. So that means on its one-way trip, it's carrying about 8, maybe 9 people. Not all of them get on and ride to the end. Some get on, ride 15 blocks, and get off. Bottom line,
if that's true, that's the most I've ever seen on a C-Tran bus, besides the fare.
Right. Yeah, that's right. On some of these special things, as well as early morning commute, and then small numbers all day long. Mm-hmm. But bottom line is, I'm from the airline business, right? I go by load factor. What percentage of my seats are full? If you look at wrongly, but the average C-Tran bus is 49 passengers, right? Oh, if we're carrying 8 or 9 people on a journey one way, you're looking at 15% of your capacity.
Well, and not only that, but they should be, I don't know if they have been, I doubt it, but they should be, looking to reduce vehicles in the sense of, smaller vehicles to accommodate that. I'm sure that their maintenance costs would be down, their capital costs would be down, and knowing that, for the lifespan of a vehicle that, by the time maybe numbers pick back up, that they'd be ready. But of course, they won't do that. They've got these huge buses. and and then electric buses. Let's bring that into the mix. Let's spend 5 times, if not more, of what it will cost to replace that on an electric bus that will run for half of the day or something like that. It just keep getting messier, John.
Yeah, the finances are not good. A different aspect of that is, what is the fare box recovery? So if you add up all of the operating costs, forget the capital cost of buying the buses or the fleet, just the operating costs, the fare box recovery continues to drop every single year, and it is down to 4.2 cents for every operating dollar they spend, which means taxpayers all over Clark County essentially are paying 96 cents of the cost for every dollar they operate. And so on one level, since all the taxpayers are paying 96% of it, why isn't it all free since we're already paying it, right?
Yeah.
You could make that argument. A different aspect in looking at it is that even though ridership is slowly growing, the costs are growing very fast.
Yeah.
In the big picture, I talk glowingly, appropriately about C-Tran because they are infinitely better managed than TriMet in Portland. TriMet's on a path to bankruptcy. They're going to run out of cash by the summer of 2029. So we do not want any financial ties with TriMet whatsoever. Stay away from it. They're going bankrupt. No bank or financial institution would loan TriMet a penny without a government guarantee behind it. We don't want that. Separately, financially, they have up to this point done a very good job in saving money. They've gotten a ton of money from the federal and the state government, partly due to COVID, and they've kept it in the bank. Right now, they have 3 years' worth of operating costs in the bank that they're saving and investing at C-Tran. So if you totally turned off the tax spigot, they could run the operations for 3 years. That's an incredibly good thing for C-Tran, as opposed to TriMet that's going bankrupt,
Right.
that doesn't have the money. But bottom line is, they ought to do, as you suggested, what are the demands?
Right.
And you get the vehicle that fits the demand. In the airline business, that's exactly what we did.
Yeah. But of course, there's not as much money in that kind of strategy. It is for the taxpayer, but not for maybe those that be involved. All right, we're going to shift gears. So we're going to move into the Brockman situation, because I think that this is really important that we spend some time on this. So walk us through kind of the latest. I know that you were just in a meeting about this facility. Maybe just kind of give a brief synopsis for those who maybe don't know that this facility is in our backyard, and kind of where things are going with it.
So just north of WSU Vancouver, out the north exit, half a mile or so, the state spent $79 million building a mental health facility. In a sense, state-of-the-art, top of the line, very nice.
When was this? When did they?
And so they finished building it, and it literally was supposed to have ribbon cutting opening a year ago this month.
Oh, wow.
So in June of 2025.
Price tag is still dangling at the gate.
Yes. They had planned it, and sadly, the Democrats, in their 2025 allocation of the largest budget in the history of Washington State, chose not to fund hiring staff to operate it. And so they are now spending $300,000 a year to put a chain link fence around it and keep it in a warm status for, at some point, it will open in the future. They didn't even tell us they weren't funding the staff during the budget debates of 2025. And I didn't find out about it till the session was over. And so literally for the last year, I've been researching the dickens out of it, fighting. I've met with the governor's staff 3 different times, with the head of Health and Human Services, had a tour in it, and it is unbelievably frustrating because we all know there is a mental health crisis in our community, whether it's the homeless, but it's much broader than that. There's not enough facilities, not enough beds. We have found a private firm that operates mental health facilities around the country, including, I believe, 5 of them here in Washington State. So they've got the knowledge, they've got the expertise, and they essentially have said, just rent it to us. Let's enter a public-private partnership. We will use your government facility. We will pay you rent, and we'll have it open. And when I met with them last December, and when I met with them again earlier this year, they said if the governor would just sign it, if the head of Health and Human Services signed an agreement, they could have it open and treating people by the end of 2026. And yet the government, sadly, frustratingly, is doing what government does. They said, we're creating a committee, we're going to study it. And so we are now going through the slow, painful death of them evaluating. My expectation is they've already had 2 meetings with different members of the community. They're going to have 2 more. I'm going to be on one in July in 2 weeks with another tour. And what they're going to do, I believe, is wait, and in September they have to propose their budget to the governor. So Health and Human Services will say, okay, here is our total agency budget request to the governor, and then the governor announces his budget in December, and then the reality of Olympia is the Democrat Party in the House and the Senate will say, thank you, Governor, ignore it, and they're going to do what they want. Given the reality that we are short of money again in Olympia because of their spending addiction in other areas, there's not going to be money for the government to hire employees. So I am making the pitch. I understand that. I read the tea leaves. Let's enter this public-private partnership, and instead of spending $600,000 every 2 years, you can actually have cash coming in the front door that you can use for other purposes. And of course, I'd advocate.
John. That come on. Let's not get crazy here. I mean, let's not just go all full common sense, because we all know where that's going to lead.
Yeah.
You know what's just tragic in this is that we saw during COVID. We saw actually it's one of the few things that Inslee did correct, which was he declared a mental health crisis for adolescents, for our youth, because of what they did to the schools with the teachers' unions and all that kind of stuff. It created this mental health crisis. And I have no doubt that, in fact, I know it, that we're seeing more of those after effects, those aftershocks, so to speak, from that. Obviously, you know, we had mental health issues before that, but that created this eruption, and it's just tragic that, you know, very few times in government where they actually, the timing is pretty good that they're going to open up this huge facility just in the nick of time, right? Just when we need it. And then for whatever reason, they decide not to fund it, which you would think that if you're going to build something, you would also kind of layer in like 5 years of funding or 10 years of funding for operations just to get it off the ground. But I really appreciate your efforts on this. Do you think that as we go into, you know, this next session, what's the likelihood, because of the attention that's brought, because of the need, what's the likelihood you think of that actually opening up?
Well, and you know me, in person, I'm the eternal optimist.
Right.
And so while I am unbelievably frustrated, we ought to be on the path to allowing the public-private partnership underway so that they could have it up and staffed during calendar year 2026. I am cautiously optimistic that with all the heat we're bringing, with all the attention, that they hopefully will make the right decision. And instead of entering that public-private partnership late last fall when they could have, when the people were there, when they could have said, here, present your proposal in the next 30 days, we'll scrutinize it, we'll get the governor or head of Health and Human Services to sign. No, that's going to happen. But my expectation is that it won't happen early next session, and that maybe by the end of it, we can have them sign that, which means end of 2027, which to me is a crying shame when it could have been open the end of this year, but at least it's progress. And if not, a different aspect, I'm talking to that same firm and saying, you have now run down every rabbit hole. You know how huge the need is. What would it take to get you to invest your company's own money and build one?
Right. Yeah, no, and I love the attention and the noise that you're bringing. I tell people all the time that you can't expect change unless people understand that there's a need for change. So you have to spend a lot of time to get attention, to educate people, to show them you've done a great job on that. You've done a great job in representing, the needs of Southwest Washington Legislative 18th District. Now, I know that you've got a campaign going. You are running again running for re-election. And so where can people go to support or hear more about your campaign?
Well, Rob, thank you. Very kind. And in a sense, I don't have enough time to run for re-election because I'm so busy representing the people. There are so many issues that I need to dig into, and I try to do my best to get back to each and every one of the people. And I'm fighting that every single day. But electjohnlee.com is my campaign website. This coming Sunday in Battleground at Galiotti's, we're having a kickoff fundraiser from 1:30 to 3:30. It's amazing Italian food. Mike is just a wonderful man, and the Battleground community has been so supportive of my efforts over the years. So, of course, we had to have the kickoff there. But as always, just go to the website, and if you've got issues, if you've got things that I can fight for you on, reach out. Email the office, call. I am here to serve the people.
Well, I appreciate it, John. Thank you for sitting down, coming into the studio, and talking briefly about these important issues. So thanks, John.
Rob, thanks for the opportunity to share with you and your viewers what I'm doing on the behalf of the people. It really is an incredible honor, and it's a huge responsibility, but I love it. The people I've been able to meet, the things I've learned, and what I can do on their behalf. I just love the challenge.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
You bet.
So that's Reformcast for this week. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Representative John Lee and also the sad news about the prosecuting attorney's office and what the future might be in store for us there. But hit the like button, the share. Please get the word out. Share this with others so that they can be informed and engaged in what's happening in Clark County in your backyard. Remember, you can support the show by going to GiveSendGo.com, Reform Clark County, and boom, you can hit the donate. You can make it reoccurring or give a one-time donation, but it really helps us to amplify and get the word out to more and more people of how our government here in Clark County needs to be reformed. And remember, with God's help, you are the catalyst of reform. See you next week.